I'm loving the show because in the previous segment, we were talking about really who's to blame. And I guess you can't really point the finger at one particular person. Is it us as human beings, as voters? Is it the politicians? I don't know. But my question is, do we set our governments up to fail? I mean, we vote in leaders who give us services. But then when the economy is hurting, we elect a new leader who will get us out of the turmoil, which you could maybe say we're in now. But are we just impatient as a culture that we don't give them enough time to proactively work towards fixing the issue of paying off the debt, which will take decades? On to your point about how we don't want to hear no from our politicians. So we're the problem.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
So now what in the world do we do about that? I don't know.
But you get in situations like Canada did in the 1990s, where the debt was such a problem that there was a consensus in the country that we really had to deal with it. And you had politicians of multiple stripes. You had the Liberals at the federal level, you had the Progressive Conservatives in Ontario, who recognized we got to buckle down, we got to balance our books, we got to pay down debt, and we did it. And so I think it's an expectation shift from both voters. What do we expect from our politicians, but when does the recognition come from voters that actually this is a problem and we do have to balance the books and we do have to start paying this down?
I mean, when there's an interesting stat, it was our debt to income in Canada is 181%, which means for every $100 that a Canadian makes, is this accurate that they're $181 in debt? Is that reality? Like that, just when I hear that, it just sounds like we're setting ourselves up to fail. Like, why not just pay off a huge portion of the debt for the next 10 years? But nobody wants to be the political leader to do that.
Well,
because that's not glamorous.
Yeah, when was the last time anybody said, like a political leader said, we can't afford it?
Like, Anthony, you love politics.
Yeah.
You love the drama a little bit.
If I ran, I'd say no for a few things, for sure.
Okay, but a leader goes on stage and is like, guys, I'm going to get elected, and you may not see a lot of new services, but I'll pay down the debt and that'll make life cheaper. But you got to give me 10 years. Like, people aren't going to go for that.
That's a lot of asks.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start from the top. Canadians have to decide what kind of country they want. Do we want a country with Ferrari services and we want to pay Toyota prices? That's not going to happen. Do we want a country that doesn't feel anymore like it's overtaxed and underserved, which I would bet most Canadians feel right now? Do we want a country that delivers services in a practical way, has the accessibility that we've promised? And do we have politicians that have the gall to tell the truth?
But
that needs to be it.
There's a tension, though, between like services, but then, okay, do we need those services if we pay down the debt a good portion and then we're saving $30 billion a year?
I think there's also a question of services and are they delivered well and are they delivered in a cost-effective manner? Yeah. Because sometimes we're spending, for example, healthcare here in Ontario, around the country. People increasingly feel like healthcare isn't working, that you're waiting too long, that you don't have access to doctors. The solution that politicians have thrown out in recent years is spend more money, spend more money, spend more money, without addressing some of the fundamental problems with the system. And I think that's a problem with politicians generally and in politics. It's a question of throw money at the problem and just say, we're addressing it. We're trying.
I love this word. What sounds sexier to people? We're going to invest $6 billion in healthcare, or have a seat with me and I'm going to show you why this dated system from the 1970s isn't working in 2025.
Wait, could you say we're going to invest $6 billion into healthcare in 3 years because we're going to actually run a budget surplus for the next 3 years and then use that to pay into healthcare?
Who could forecast a budget surplus for 3 years? Nobody knows what the economy is going to do.
Yeah, you're right. And I actually when I spoke to Joe Oliver, former finance minister, he actually said, you can't really forecast it. It's crazy to say that you're going to balance the budget next year, but you could say, okay, we have a game plan and a target to say in 2-3 years, we'll run a surplus. Vince, you got something to say?
Well, I also worry about giving a government $6 billion and just give them carte blanche, because at the end of the day, we see is there's leakage, right? There's inefficiencies in government.
So you're talking like Doge, Department of Government Efficiency.
Well, I'm just saying in general, what happens is that if you just give someone money easily, just like that, they're going to find a way to spend it, and it's not always going to be the most efficient way.
Okay, but when we talk about Doge, we got 40 seconds here. Let's have some fun. Donald Trump comes in and says, we got to spend less money. So he brings in people that aren't even politicians to say, you guys got to just cut everything that is inefficient like you would in a business. Does Canada need that a little bit?
I don't know how well the work.
Because-
I don't know what a Doge department would do in Canada, but that's already causing problems with the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate. Yeah, that's all optics.
But the idea of it, though.
Okay, but that means saying no to something, and saying no doesn't get you votes, unfortunately. We've seen that.
Well, how about saying no to some of the bonuses at the Crown Corps, the fancy bonuses?
Okay, I got 5 seconds here. That's a good way to end it. We'll be right back to keep this conversation flowing.
I'ma rule the world, yeah.